should have screamed, but the fear caught my voice in its throat. The room smelled like blood, metallic and thick. There were 5 girls lying on the cold marble floor, their eyes wide open but lifeless. A man stood over them, muttering something under his breath, his hands dripping red. I froze, staring at the flickering light from the candles bounced off the shiny black marks he wore. That's when I knew I had walked into something I wasn't supposed to see. But I need to start from the beginning. My name is Kuyet. I am a 22-year-old girl from Kaduna State. Life hasn't been easy. My parents struggled to make ends meet, and I've been juggling odd jobs to pay for my final year of school. So when my friend Zinta invited me to spend the weekend in Abuja, promising I will make money, I didn't think it twice. I was desperate, and Zinta always seemed to have everything figured out. The party was in an estate in Maitama, one of those neighborhoods you only see in Nollywood movies. The house was massive, with high walls and security guards who didn't even blink as we walked past. Inside, it was like stepping into another world. Everyone was dressed in black and white, the men in silky suits and the women in stylish dresses. Zinta handed me a mask that covered my eyes and told me to relax. "You are going to love this," she whispered, smiling. "It's just rich men wanting to have fun, and guess what? You're about to be richer." The living room was huge, with a chandelier that looked like it cost more than my entire village. Waiters walked around with trays of champagne, and everyone laughed like they didn't have a problem in the world. But something felt off. Maybe it was the way the men stared at us, their eyes cold and calculating, or the way Zinta kept brushing off my questions about why we were really there. When the host, a tall man with a deep voice, announced it was time for the game, everyone cheered. He called it Truth or Death. I thought it was just a play on words, a twisted rich people version of normal truth or dare game. "Ladies," he said, his voice smooth like honey but with a sharp edge, "please send your account numbers to the number on the screen, a token of our appreciation for gracing us with your presence tonight." Minutes later, my phone buzzed. 500,000 naira, just like that. My heart raced. I couldn't believe it. Zinta nudged me, smiling. "See, I told you this would be fun," she said, raising her glass. But as the game started, my restlessness grew. The rules were simple. The host would ask a question, and if you refused to answer truthfully, you had to pick it there. If you refused it there, you had to take a shot from the glass they called the cup of courage. One by one, the girls were called into a room off to the side. They will laugh nervously, take their masks off and go inside. But none of them came back. I asked Zinta where they were going, but she waved me off. "Relax, Kuyet. They are probably just chilling in another room. These houses have like 20 rooms," she said, rolling her eyes. But I wasn't convinced. The air felt heavy, like something terrible was about to happen. Then I started seeing things. Shadows that moved where they shouldn't have been shadows. Faces in the windows that disappeared when I turned to look. I told Zinta, but she just laughed. "We are imagining things," she said. "Just enjoy the party and think about what that 500k can do for you and your family." She was right. My parents could finally buy food without worrying about debt. I could pay my school fees, maybe even start a small business. I tried to push the strange feeling aside, but it kept clawing its way back. When it was my turn, I stood up, my legs trembling. The host smiled at me, but it wasn't a kind smile. Truth or death, Miss Kuyet? Truth, I whispered. Have you ever betrayed a friend? I hesitated, my mind racing. Did he mean Zinta? Why would he ask me that? The room fell silent, everyone waiting for my answer. No, I said, my voice barely audible. He raised an eyebrow, then gestured toward the room. You may proceed. I didn't want to go. Something in me screamed to run, but my feet moved on their own. As I walked towards the door, I told the host I needed to use the restroom first. He nodded, but his smile didn't reach his eyes. Once out of sight, I opened the rattle door, hoping to find an exit. Instead, I found them, the girls. They were lined up on the floor, their beautiful dresses soaked in blood. The men in masks stood around them, chanting. One of them held a knife, his hand steady as he carved something into the next girl's chest. Her screams were quiet by a cloth tied around her mouth. I backed away, my stomach rolling. But before I could run, someone grabbed me from behind. Looks like we have a curious one, the host said, his voice cold and sharp. I don't remember much after that. Just the sound of my own screams echoing in my head. When I opened my eyes, I wasn't in the hospital. Instead, I was lying on the hard, dusty floor of a small hut. My body ached all over, and my head felt like it had been split into two. The air reeked of blood and smoke. I blinked a few times, trying to focus. Around me were other girls, all unconscious. Some were bruised, others barely breathing. My heart nearly stopped when I spotted Zinta a few feet away. Slumped against the wall, face was pale, and blood stained her dress. I crawled towards her, my hands trembling. Zinta, I whispered, shaking her gently. Wake up, please. She didn't respond. Her chest rose and fell, but her breathing was shallow. Panic surged through me. I looked around the room and spotted another girl staring. She sat up slowly, her eyes wide with fear. What's happening? Where are we? She asked, her voice barely audible. I don't know, I said. What's your name? Enewa, she replied, glancing at Zinta. Is she alive? She's breathing, I said, but she's not waking up properly. Enewa and I helped each other up, our legs wobbly like newborn calves. The hut was dimly lit by a kerosene lamp hanging from a wooden beam, a small dusty window. We could see the shadowy figures of men gathered outside. They were chanting, their voices low and menacing. The ground outside was smeared with blood, and several bodies lay motionless. My stomach roared. We need to get out of here, I whispered. Anyone nodded, her eyes darting nervously. Together we tried to revive Zinta. She groaned softly and opened her eyes halfway, her gaze unfocused. Zinta, it's me, Kuyet, I said, gripping her hand. We need to leave. Can you stand? She murmured something I couldn't understand, but managed to sit up with our help. Enewa peeked out of the window again. They are gone, she said, her voice shaky. I didn't ask where the men had gone or how long they've been away. We couldn't waste time. With Zinta barely able to walk, Enewa and I took one of her arms and carried her as quietly as we could out of the hut. The night was eerily silent, except for the distant hum of crickets. The moonlight barely illuminated the dense bush around us. We moved as quickly as we could, fear fueling our every step. Zinta stumbled a few times, muttering incoherently, but we managed to keep her on her feet. After what felt like hours, we reached a dirt road. Enewa stepped into the middle of it, waving frantically at the passing cars. "Help us! Please stop!" she screamed, her voice breaking. Car after car sped past, their drivers not even glancing in our direction. My heart sank. What if no one stopped? What if the men from the hut came back for us? Finally, an old taxi screeched to a halt a few meters ahead. The driver, a middle-aged man with a worried expression, rolled down his window. "What happened to you girls?" he asked, looking at Zinta, slumped in our arms. "Please help us," I begged. "We don't know where we are." He got out and helped us lift Zinta into the car. "You are in Karu," he said. "What were you girls doing out here?" "We'll explain later," Enewa said, glancing nervously down the road. "Just take us to the nearest hospital." He nodded and sped off. Zinta was fading in and out of consciousness, her head lolling against my shoulder. When we arrived at the hospital, the nurses immediately took Zinta into a room. They asked us what had happened, but we didn't have any answers. The only thing we knew was that she needed help. The doctors told us later that she suffered some kind of trauma, both physical and psychological. They didn't understand what had been done to her, but I had a sinking feeling it had something to do with the rituals we had seen. Zinta didn't speak much during the 3 days we spent in the hospital. She stared blankly at the ceiling, her once vibrant personality stripped away. It was like she wasn't fully there anymore. On Christmas Eve, we decided to leave for Kaduna. Zinta wasn't getting better, and staying in Abuja only reminded us of the nightmare we had escaped. Enewa called a cab driver who took us to the bus park. Enewa left for Makurdi, for she said she didn't feel safe anymore staying in Abuja and had to go home. The ride back to Kaduna was quiet. Zinta sat beside me, her eyes empty. When we finally reached home, our parents were relieved to see me, but horrified when I told them what had happened. I didn't go into all the details. Some things are too painful to say out loud. I said she just kept praying for me because she had never felt like that before the day I went to Abuja with Zinta. Zinta stayed with us for a while before her family came to pick her. But she wasn't the same. She barely ate, barely spoke. It was like part of her had been left behind in that hut. I don't know what those men did to her or why they let us go. Maybe they thought we wouldn't survive. Or maybe they wanted us to carry the scars of that night for the rest of our lives. Or maybe my mother's prayers truly saved us that night. If you ever get invited to a party that promises easy money, don't go. No amount of money is what we went through, and no amount of therapy can erase the memories of what I saw in that hut. Be extremely cautious of the kind of invitations, events, or opportunities you accept, especially those that seem too good to be true. Trust your instincts when something feels wrong, and avoid situations where details are vague or secrecy is encouraged. Remember, your safety and well-being are worth far more than any financial gain. Always inform trusted friends or family about your whereabouts, and never underestimate the risks of venturing into unfamiliar or suspicious circumstances. Have you ever experienced something similar or heard of a story like this? Share your thoughts and experiences in the comment section below. Don't forget to like the story and subscribe to our channel to help us grow. For more spine-chilling tales, please subscribe.